Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. We're happy to have Advent eModal here with us. We're going to give everyone a minute or so to get into the audience. You know, as with all our HTA events, this is for educational purposes only. You cannot redistribute or repurpose this for any reason. But if you ever need to get a hold of our presenters or the HTA, you can always reach me, Eric, at harbortrucker.com. I think we've all gotten used to this platform already, but if you need to ask a question, you can ask a question at any time in your chat bar in your control panel, or if you're just listening in with a cell phone or your conference phone, you can also send an email to me with your questions if you have them. We'll give everyone a minute to get in. It looks like most people are already rolling in, and we'll get started soon. Weston, do you want to give people a little bit of an intro into the topic? Weston, we can't hear you.
We'll give it a minute for folks to get in, and then I'll hop in. So
great.
Bear with.
And then Harvey, the presentation is on the edit mode. Great.
All right, well, let's get started. And Eric, thanks for putting this together, and thank you for joining us. We have the team from Advent eModal here to talk about street turn applications today. We've had a long-standing partnership with Advent eModal, and they've been one of the major tech providers in our industry for a very long time now. We've seen a lot of great new tools come out of them, especially during this pandemic. There's been, I think, a greater effort to see how they can aid the trucking community in communications with terminals. So I'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we've partnered on a little bit later on, but I'm going to kick it over to Dennis Monts.
Hey, thank you to the HTA, Weston. Also, thank you to your president, Robert Loya, for hosting this session. We've enjoyed working with you as we lead into this. One thing I would say, as we come to all the folks on this from our homes and our personal workspaces, this is a truly odd time, and I hope this finds everyone well and finding ways to thrive in the face of this pandemic. I'm Dennis Monts. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for Advent eModal, and we also have with us Harvey Bauer, who's our Customer Success Manager for the West Coast operations, and Rawad Hijazi. He is one of our key product managers for Landside Solutions and the development of applications on the eModal platform. So our global offices do remain closed at this time, but our entire team remains entirely virtually engaged. In fact, we've been hiring and doubling down on our investment in software as a service applications on the eModal platform. This year, we're going to actually deploy our next generation eModal community portal. We call it ECP 2.0, and it'll provide a lot of new features, but most importantly, immediate infrastructure scalability so that we can meet peak demands of now over 150,000 eModal users around the globe. But today, we're going to take a look at the new purpose-built Empty Manager street turn application. And this application will launch off the eModal platform beginning on June 28th. eModal is at the core of operations in 8 of the top 10 US ports. And beyond just the areas covered by the HTA, this application will be available in all markets. So we're going to give you some background overview of the problems that we're trying to solve with the HTA, some nuts and bolts of what this application does and how it works, and where you can get involved. Back in, if we go to the next slide, back in April, it was late one Friday evening, I gave Weston a call on his cell phone, I guess late my time, probably, early evening his time. And we were just chatting. Yeah, we were chatting about how eModal might assist HTA in the face of COVID. And we chatted for a long while. We conferenced in Robert Loya, and we ultimately settled on the need to do a few things, further digitize documentation, but as a first mover, to increase the efficiency of empty appointments, better deal with empties taking up off-dock yard capacity, and to reduce empty-only outgates. I don't know, Weston, any recollections of that conversation and the dialogue?
Yeah, it was great timing because just before we had that conversation, you had said to me, what are one of the biggest things that we could do to increase efficiency at the port and reduce and increase the ability to do social distancing? And we had just had a conversation about the massive amount of empty only outs that were taking place, and how could we perhaps make it so our members didn't even have to go to the marine terminal to pick up those empty containers. We had so many members that had a plethora of empties sitting in their yard that they had a hard time returning. We had other members looking for empties for export. And we felt like if there was any time where an advanced street turn application was going to work, this was a great time to do it. And I appreciate you guys stepping up to the table and working to develop something as quickly as possible, because at the end of the day, it accomplishes so many things. It's a business opportunity for our members to not have to pay a driver to go wait at a terminal if there's congestion just to pick up an empty container. It was an opportunity for our members who had empties they couldn't return to stop the clock. So there's your business opportunity. It was a great way to keep truckers out of the terminal. And this was very early on in the process as we were still trying to figure out the sanitizing practices and the social distancing practices. And in general, it was an opportunity to set the stage for something that may be a better practice moving forward. So I appreciate, Dennis, you guys stepping up to the table and reaching out to us, but the timing couldn't have been better because we had identified a problem. You called me, and after that call, you, Robert, and I identified a potential solution. So thank you very much.
Well, you know, that that weekend, I started digging into some data just to validate, what we were thinking about doing. And although the pick empty appointments, we call them, and those movements represent a smaller percentage of the San Pedro Basin container movements, it's still tens of thousands of truck trips in our system. And more interesting really is to drop empty appointments in eModal. In 2019, a third, 33% of the canceled or the completed appointments were for drop empty. But in the first half of this year, in the COVID environment, that shifted down to 23%. And so essentially, it was just leaving hundreds of thousands of containers piling up on the street. And another piece of that, we looked into the canceled or miss appointments related to drop empties, and it hit 81% in the first 5 months of this year. Last year, it was more like 45%. So that's a big change, and so there are great efficiencies to be had, and we hope the street turn app can assist. So we got back together the next Monday after that Friday call. If you remember, we shared a design for what what ultimately became the Empty Manager application that we'll show you today. 6 weeks later, here we are, and the application's in demo, and we're ready for production release. I think one thing that I would point out, there have been no charges to anyone for the development of the app, and we plan no usage charges to any of the users of the system for the functionality that we'll demonstrate to you today. So, another thing recently, lesson two, if you think about FMC Commissioner Dye's operational recommendations in the San Pedro Bay ports, 3 of the 5 recommendations related to empty export or gates. So, I think this approach could also, make a big impact in what the FMC is looking at as well. But with that said, I'm going to ask the guys to tee up a quick 1-minute video overview of the application, and then Harvey and Rawad will walk you through more details.
I'm not hearing audio, Eric.
Yeah, there's no audio right now.
Know that productivity and efficiency are essential to meeting your customers' needs. Advent eModal is introducing Empty Manager, a new street turn app that enables trucking companies to easily connect with each other and manage the exchange of empty containers on the street. With a few simple clicks, you can publish available empties to the trucking community. If you're in need of a container, no problem. With eModal Empty Manager, street turns are easy. You can find just the right box by narrowing your search by size, type, shipping line, or zip code. When you are ready to complete the street turn, eModal's app makes it easy and simple to view location details, manage the exchange electronically, and print transaction receipts. The app is free to use. If you are already a registered eModal user, just log in with your eModal credentials. If you're not currently an eModal user, register your company today to get started. eModal Empty Manager for Street Turns is yet one more way that eModal apps connect intermodal stakeholders and remove friction in the landside movement of cargo.
All right. Well, thank you, Dennis, Weston. I hope that switch over back to the presentation was clean. If any of the presenters would like to let me know, just to make sure that we're seeing everything. Again, okay, great. Again, I just want to thank Dennis, Weston, Eric, and the HTA for affording us this opportunity, and also thank all of you that are joining us today for this webinar. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Harvey Bauer. I'm a customer success manager here at Advent eModal. And what I'd like to focus on for the next couple of minutes anyway are some of the goals for the Empty Manager framed in the business problems that we are trying to solve with the application. Now, Dennis and Weston hit on these, but I really want to hone in on them. Because at the end of the day, any technology solution should provide business value for the intended audience. And in this case, we're talking about you, the trucking community. So the first and most obvious goal is to reduce the unladen trips to and from the marine terminals. You know, I think we can all agree that less trips to the port complex for the sole purpose of empty moves benefits all stakeholders. You know, and as Dennis mentioned, we're talking about tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of empty moves in a year just in the San Pedro Basin. So if we can help reduce that by just 10%, imagine the impact it could have. The second business goal was to provide a simple contactless means of exchanging empty equipment away from the port complex, kind of hand in hand with the first goal. But when we consider the context of the current pandemic that Dennis and Weston talked about, this was really top of mind for us as we started this process and this project to develop the street turn application. If we can help minimize the activities that increase the likelihood of the virus spread, things like human interaction at the terminal, using kiosks at the gate, or exchanging paper, then we wanted to play a role in that as we went through this process. And we also understand that particularly in large harbor complexes like LA Long Beach, traffic congestion in the area can be very challenging. If the application can help remove just a small percentage of the truck traffic from I-710, for example, it benefits everyone, not only the truck drivers, but the normal traffic commuters. So hand in hand with this sort of traffic mitigation aspect is that of reducing emissions in the harbor, you know, the environmental goal, so to speak. And I don't want to politicize or overstate this aspect, but we strongly feel as an organization that wherever technology presents an opportunity to positively impact our environment, we should seize it. And finally, perhaps most importantly, our aim with Empty Manager is to assist you, the trucking community, to increase the effective use of your trucks and drivers. Our hope is it will help you work smarter, not harder. Okay, so those are the goals, the business problems that we're solving for, but what does it do? You've already seen just a moment ago a quick video overview of the application, and we'll be sharing a couple more short videos in a few moments, as well as a brief software demonstration from Rawad. However, as a software company, and I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but it's worth a quick overview. As a software company, when we develop new applications, after we've identified the larger goals, we need to look at the use cases and the user personas. So from the perspective of the identified users of the software, you folks, the trucking community, we are providing a street turn application which addresses the needs of, one, the import trucker who has an empty container which he or she needs to return to the port, as well as the export trucker who needs an empty for a container, needs an empty container for a booking. At the same time, we're cognizant of the needs of the owner of the equipment, i.e. the ocean carrier, who authorizes the usage of the empty. As a note here, the current application in its current iteration provides for self-declaration by the receiving trucker, and you'll see that here in a moment. Self-declaration that they are authorized by the ocean carrier to take possession. This is essentially the same process that exists with the street turns that many of you may already be doing using Excel spreadsheets or other tools. The solution needs to reside on a single platform, as Dennis mentioned, the eModal platform, which is already used by many terminals and trucking companies around the country, where the import trucker can publish an empty and the export trucker can search for and reserve an empty. And finally, we need to give consideration around the reserving trucking company getting authorization from the chassis provider to use the chassis that's associated with that container. And this is part of that self-declaration process. So let's take a quick look at how Empty Manager works. First for publishing an empty container, then we'll turn it over to Rawad to further explain how the application works. Eric, can you go ahead and cue video 2, please?
Empty Manager provides a street turn app that enables trucking companies to easily connect with each other and manage the exchange of empty containers on the street. In this video, I'll walk you through the simple process of publishing an empty to the trucking community, making it available to be reserved for a street turn. To begin, select Login and then log into the app using your eModal username and password. If you don't have an eModal username, select Register Now and register to create a username. Registering and using the Empty Manager app is free. The app will open to the eModal watch list. If you're an existing eModal user, you'll see the containers you have on your watch list. If you're not an existing eModal user or you don't have containers on your watch list, this page will be blank. There are 2 ways to publish an empty. You may do it directly from your watch list here, or you can do it using the Empty Manager Street Turn app functionality. I'll start by showing you the Street Turn functionality. To begin, from the left side menu, click on Empty Manager and then Street Turn Management. Then select that you have an empty. You'll be prompted to enter the information about the empty container that you're publishing, such as container number, size, line, chassis number, chassis size type, chassis provider, the per diem date, which is the date in which the empty must be returned to the terminal before there's a detention fee, available date, and location. And then click Submit. The container will now be displayed in empty searches and can be reserved by other companies in the trucking community for a street turn. The container will also be added to your watch list with the status of available for street turn. The status will change after the container has been reserved. Prior to the container being reserved, you may change or cancel the street turn availability from the watch list by selecting the container on the watch list and selecting Cancel or Edit Street Turn from the Actions menu at the top of the page. You can also publish any container with the trade type of import to the community right here from your watch list. Simply click on the container and from the Actions menu select Publish Street Turn. The advantage of publishing the empty container from your watch list is the container information will default to this screen. Then you will just add the additional required information and select Submit. A container may be added to your watch list by using the Add to My Containers functionality at the top of the watch list. Now that you know how to post an empty container, you might be wondering, how do I reserve one? To learn more about this, check out Advent eModal's how-to video on reserving empties and completing street turns.
Thank you, Eric. Rawad?
Hi. Well, so it's good morning, everyone. We've met and spoken quite a few times, some of us. I will share my screen and go over. Let me just make sure that I have the correct screen. Can you see my screen, Harvey?
Yes, I can.
All right. Okay. Well, essentially, I think Dennis and Harvey have covered this. What we put together is a platform that essentially will give you the option of publishing any empty that you have in your possession, so that other companies out there, other trucking companies, or anyone who needs to know where the empties are on the street have visibility into that. It's a very straightforward, simple process. We ask you to fill in a few pieces of information. If you have an eModal login, you'll be able to log into this application using your existing eModal credentials. If you do not have an eModal account and you are new to the eModal world, then you will be able to register now, same as you would in eModal, and then those credentials would carry over across all these applications. The goal for us is to have the eModal Empty Manager beta tested in the Los Angeles market, and then take it, make it available to more in more regions. So most of you all on this call probably already have an eModal account, so you shouldn't have to worry about this too much. As I mentioned, very easy. When you log in, so this will not be under eModal.com. It will be its own app, which will be linked to the eModal application. It is powered by eModal. As you see, when you log in and you land on your containers watch list, you have a different watch list than what you currently have in eModal.com. The reason is that this application was built on what we refer to as the eModal platform, which we are looking at releasing to production towards the end of the year for eModal.com, which will give you additional features on the watch list, additional functionality, options, flexibility in managing your saved views, exporting your watch list. It will change the way you essentially do the appointments by providing you with more visibility into available appointments, the reasons why containers may not be available for appointments, have a system that more dynamically identifies the best time slots for you based on terminals, capacities, filters, rules, and your defined selection of preferred time for a visit with the terminal. So you will see that watch list, that upgraded watch list, as part of this application. And while you will not have the option of creating appointments from the Empty Manager app at this time, you will have the option of creating a street turn through the street turn management. So under the Port Manager tab, you will have your containers watch list, your bookings and group code watch list. Any container or group code or booking that you have in your eModal watch list will carry over to this new watch list on the Empty Manager. Now, one thing you need to be mindful of here is that while in eModal.com, only your import containers show under your containers watch list, with the new platform, you will have visibility into both imports, exports, and then loads and empty containers. So you will be able to manage all of that on through this watch list and get their status. So there's multiple ways to publish your empties. Essentially, if you navigate to the Empty Manager section, to the Street Turn Management app, as you saw it in the video, I have an empty or I need an empty. So I'm publishing the empty. I have an empty. I do OK. And then I fill in the details that I have for this specific container, any size type, shipping line, chassis information, my per diem date, when is the container supposed to be available, and then the location of my container. That location, that address, is where the container will be available for pickup. It can be the parking lot at the Walmart on Traffic Circle, or it can be your depot. It can be, whatever location you have the container at. And once you have filled in all your information, you can submit, and you can add another. You can publish another empty if you have another one, or you can say no, which takes you to the containers watch list and adds the container to your watch list if it was not already on your watch list with a status of available for street turn. So now that I've published my container, if somebody is looking for an empty, they will be able to see this specific empty. Straightforward. I mean, do you want me to continue with the?
Rawad, why don't you go ahead and show the other side of the system,
Yeah.
reserving an empty, and then we could just recap with the video.
All right. So essentially once you have a container published for an empty, you have the option of canceling. So through the actions, you'll have the options of canceling your street turn availability. So that will take the container away from the available pool of containers on the street. You will have the option of reserving that container for a street turn if you want to do a street turn with yourself, essentially, and you picked up a container for a customer and you're returning it against a booking for another customer, then you're able to do that yourself as well. And then what you will see through the application as you'll be using it is that these different action options will be either enabled or disabled based on where in the process of the life cycle of that street turn you are and who are the users doing the action. So if I publish the container and I'm working for trucking company ABC, then a user from trucking company XYZ will not be able to cancel that street turn. I mean, it just makes sense. All right. Similarly to where we were earlier, if I'm on my watch list and I have containers on my watch list, imports that I've worked with, I can do an action and I can publish street turn, and those will also take me in doing that action to this screen where I will be able to fill in all my information. So I'm on my watch list. Now I'm in need of an empty. I will go to the street turn management. I need an empty. And here I will be prompted to enter a selection of different information. So I can look up a specific container number. Let's say I published an empty and I want to reserve it for myself. Or I called my buddy over across the street and I said, hey, I have this empty, do you want it? Yes. All right, here's the container number. You can just put it in. But I can also do a search by shipping line. I can do a search by container number, by chassis type, by chassis pool provider. And then I can enter an actual facility and or a city, address, available date, per diem date. And then I can search with a radius around a specific location. So you will also have the actual address to search by. So once I enter a selection, I hit search, and then I will get a list of all the containers that are available that have been published for a street turn. So as you can see, I have a number of containers with their different locations, and they're all available for street turn. And this is the one that we just published earlier. So I will go ahead and I will reserve this empty. So I will be prompted to ask to enter some information, and I will have to self-declare that I'm authorized to request the empty. So one thing that we want to remind of as part of this discussion is that this application is in this initial phase of it meant to provide you with a way to, it's essentially a marketplace where you can query to see, okay, are there empties available around me that match those specific criteria? The process you go through to actually secure that container with the shipping line and that authorization would still have to happen. And down the line, we're working towards, helping streamline that entire process as well. But for now, Our goal is to provide you with visibility into the containers available on the street, and facilitate that exchange of container between an import trucking company with the export. So once I enter my information and I hit OK, what you'll see is that that container gets added to your watch list as the one reserving the container. And it gets updated on the publisher's watch list as well as reserved for Street Turn. So this container was previously available for Street Turn. And if I expand my container details, I have a services section at the bottom where I will have a service receipt, which contains the information of both the publisher and the requester, as well as my available date and per diem. I'm able to print this receipt or keep it and just close it. And you once the container has then been picked up, and now okay, I'm supposed to pick up this container on the 23rd. Today's the 23rd. Is it? It is. My driver goes there, he picks up the container, and then I will be able to come in and then complete my street turn. Just enter my driver's information, truck license plate. This is the container that I picked up. And then the system will default to the time I'm performing the action to pick up date and time. And I'm able to modify that. And then I can click on OK. And now my street turn is marked as complete. And my service receipt has been updated to completed as well and contains my actual pickup date as opposed to my available date earlier. Again, at any time through that process, I would have had the option of editing my street turn or canceling my street turn or deleting from my containers. And one thing you want to keep in mind is that we understand that sometimes, like any businesses out there, sometimes two trucking companies may not be, doing business together too well. And if they see, oh, this has actually been reserved by trucking company XYZ, and, I've had bad experience dealing with them, and, they say they're going to come pick it up, but I'm going to end up having that container sitting in my yard until I start accumulating per diem. I have to return to the terminal and pay charges on it. Then you will have the option of also canceling that street turn request, so that you can manage those relationships a little bit better. If your container gets ingated at the terminal before, let's say I publish a container for a street turn, and then Dennis reserves that container, and then for some reason I decide that I'm just going to return the container to Pier A, or I don't know, Tray Pack, and that container ingates at the terminal. That ingate event will automatically cancel my street turn as well. So you will have that notification that your street turn was canceled. So you won't have to send your driver to pick it up. So in a nutshell, this is really what this application does. So it allows you again to publish your empties, and once you have them published, it allows other users to search for those available empties, and then to manage that entire process until the exchange of the container between one entity to the other. So I will let Harvey and Dennis add any comments. That's all I had.
Thank you, Rawad.
Yeah.
Dennis, do you think we should run that last video, or should we just bypass that for now?
I think it's on the website for folks to view if they'd like. It goes through a lot of the same details that Rawad just shared in about a 2-minute format.
So Eric, yeah, if you want to make me the presenter again.
You should be good to go.
Thank you. All right, so we just saw the demonstration from Rawad. Thank you, Rawad, for walking everybody through the application and how it works and what it does. We appreciate that. I hope everyone has a pretty good understanding now of how it works. But so what's next? Well, with the current version, we'll begin beta testing. I think Rawad and Dennis both mentioned this, but we'll begin beta testing on June 28th. And if you would like to be a participant in beta testing, please go to our website, and we'll provide the exact URL here in a moment, where you can complete a very brief form request to be a beta partner. And after that point, that will be followed by about 4 weeks of 4-week duration where we'll be gathering feedback and making any changes that are needed to make sure the application's production ready for the entire country. But future versions of the application will provide additional functionality, and some of this may include the ability to create the pre-advice or appointment for the export load drop at the terminal at the time of performing the street turn. Rawad mentioned also, the ocean carrier and chassis provider authorization. We'll be looking into how we may streamline that process. And functionality to capture equipment damage information at the time of doing the street turn. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dennis for now, who's going to kind of wrap up the session here.
And thanks, Harvey. Yeah, and thank you, Rawad. Appreciate the demo. Thanks again to HTA for the opportunity to share this. Visit adventintermodal.com/empty manager, or if you just go to adventintermodal.com or adventemodal.com, there's a menu drop down of products, and you'll see Empty Manager application listed. At that site, you can download a user guide. You can interact with videos and materials that you've seen today, as well as a few others. And there's just a real simple form. Just send your name, company, email, and we'll get you in the mix as a beta user. So maybe to the next slide, Harvey. We are looking forward to the next HTA webinar. We're still working on a date, but one of the things that we thought would be really good to address would be, as you're reaching out to our customer experience team, what are the top 5 issues that are coming across our desk, and that our team is working with you, and if we can work through those together in our next webinar, it may help you to optimize your daily eModal interactions. So look forward to a communication from the HTA on that sometime in July or August. And with that, I think that's all that we had today. We hope everyone would be safe and have a great day.
We have quite a few questions in the queue, but there's still room. So if you still have questions for our panelists, go ahead and enter them or send me an email right now. To start off, people are wondering about if you're going to notify steamship lines and chassis providers. I know you addressed it, but is there a timeline for that functionality to be implemented? And which steamship lines and IEPs are you going to reach out to?
I think I can handle that. I mean, essentially, we'll reach out to them all, but the first we have to prove the base MVP functionality of the marketplace itself, right? And then I think that'll create, more of a vehicle through which there's value created for the carriers and the IEPs. And time frame for that would be this year. Yeah.
Okay, great. I had a question from some people want to know, is there going to be a TMS tie-in or API? And would it be something that the trucker themselves sets up with you, or can they ask the TMS provider to work with you?
Yeah, so we're already working with all the major TMS providers for cargo visibility and appointment setting functionality. So certainly have your TMS provider reach out to us, and we'll be working with them, on APIs as well. Right now, our first priority is on the appointment setting APIs. Likewise, I would say the eModal platform is agnostic to other appointment systems as well. So, we're open to ingesting APIs for any other appointment systems other than eModal applications. And another kind of interesting thing about our new platform is that it's a platform with a shared database and a shared single sign-on across all applications. And we built it that way so that third parties could develop apps on top of our platform. And so that also has some features and functions that may play out in the future relative to this.
Cool, great. We had a question come in regarding chassis. Is there a section to show if it's an owned chassis versus a pool chassis? They saw in the demo that you can put the chassis number in, but they want to know if when they pick it up, if it's going to have to be flipped maybe, or if it's on a pool.
So if it's an owned chassis, I'll say owned.
All right, great, thank you. And then somebody wanted clarification that, you know, I think you said that you were starting in the LA Long Beach area, and after the beta test is going to roll out, but can you elaborate a little further if it's going to make its way up, when it's going to make its way up to Oakland?
Well, so actually, I said that, but I kind of lied because I'm actually working with some of the trucking companies up in Oakland to give them access as well. So it will be accessible to all, but it's the proximity, I mean, to the community here in Los Angeles specifically makes it a little bit easier to reach out and get that feedback. With the nature of the operations of the different terminals here and the issues they've been facing in returning empties to the terminals, we just thought that the trucking community in LA specifically and Long Beach would be more inclined to give it a go and actually, you know, use this platform to give us their feedback and let us know, is it working for them? Do we need to change something? You know, do we have to add functionality to make it a viable product? But absolutely, if we have members in Oakland or in Seattle and Tacoma that are willing to get on and do that, you know, testing effort, then absolutely, more than.
So
Interestingly, we've also had a lot of interest in the South Florida, particularly marketplace around this as well. So what we're trying to do just in this first initial 4-week beta is just to incubate some users who have some significant volume between them that, you know, could really serve to test out the system before we do a hard push out.
Okay, I am getting a lot of comments from folks that Oakland is a more balanced port. They have a lot of exports, and since there's such a heavy export, there's a lot of people that are saying, "Hey, it's imperative that we get this up in Oakland. How can I be a beta tester for Oakland when it's, you know?" So there's a lot of interest. So I would, if there's Oakland people that are really interested, they should go and sign up for contact you directly, or do you want us to give you a list?
Harvey, maybe back up one slide, and I would encourage them to go to this site and just send us a note. There's a little form at the site. It's very, very simple. Just fill it out and hit submit, and we'll have them. Likewise, Eric, if your team collects a group of you know, particular carriers that express interest to you, of course, we'll be in an ongoing dialogue.
Great. And then
yeah, we can provide the exact URL, Eric, if there's interest, obviously. But as Dennis mentioned, it's probably easiest just to go to adventintermodal.com, and then in the products section, you'll see Empty Manager, and right on that page, there's a very short form to request to be a beta partner.
What we can do, if it's okay with you guys, is we can send this out to our members with that link built right in, so they'll have the opportunity to just click on our eBlast, or if you want, we can send via social media as well, and then it would send right to this form, and then you'd have yourself a good list of potential beta testers in multiple markets.
That works well. Let's do that. Great.
So question askers that are interested, you know, we'll send that eBlast out, and there's also the link published there. We have at their yard, they have a top loader. And is there a way for them to indicate that they have this top loader available so they can flip a container onto a known chassis in the app?
That is a great idea. It's not currently included, but that's the kind of feedback we're looking for as part of this beta testing, so that we can incorporate these changes into the application. So I will take that and see, you know, how much work it would be for us to get that incorporated. I don't foresee it to be too much, but I will good feedback. Good question.
Thank you. Question asker. So if my driver goes there and is doing his pre-trip to do the switch off the street turn, and it's not acceptable for road, it's not roadworthy in his opinion, is there a way for them to cancel their street turn request in this app?
Yes.
Great. And then what if there is a disconnect from, sorry, one second, a disconnect from, oh, okay. So let's say that the person that is the receiver of the street turn goes and picks up the container. Is the person that published that street turn waiting on them to finalize that transaction, or is there a way for the publisher to say, hey, it was picked up, and take this off, give me the acceptance that it was picked up?
So the way we have it built today is meant for the picking it up to complete this return. Just because we would like to give them an opportunity to identify that they received the equipment in good conditions. So from that perspective, the one giving it away is always more biased towards making it, without any damage, while the other one may be a little bit more realistic about it. So
Gotcha.
if we built it that way, but if this doesn't work and the community needs different options, we're open.
I think so. Rawad, they would have the information on who had reserved that box, so they could reach out to them directly, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then also, of course, if we see a gate event on that container, we're going to automatically close it.
Correct. So if you do pick it up and you do not end up completing your street turn, but you end up returning it as an export or as an empty to another facility, then that gate event will complete your street turn.
Okay. Via an EDI towards your system?
Yes.
Okay. There's another question. I think you did cover this, but someone's asking if they can see the chassis provider listed. If I'm not allowed to use a certain chassis, or if I don't want to use a certain company's chassis, I can see right there that, hey, maybe that's not the empty for me.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and let's go ahead and throw out a last call for questions. I think we're getting through a lot of them. There was a lot, people keep sending in comments that yes, we want to indicate that we can flip in our yard because that's going to help us move empties out.
Mm-hmm.
That saves them time and easy.
That's a great input. Yeah.
And then I'm not seeing any others roll in. Okay, we're getting comments that, hey, we really appreciate you guys doing this for us. This is an important service that you're offering, and we really like it. So thank you. I echo those sentiments as well. I think we'll go ahead and, if you booked, okay, that last call got them energized. If you book the container in your platform, will it transact in your own TMS?
Not currently.
Well, if the TMS provider was connected to us via API, if it updated the watch list, then it should update the TMS, I would think. We'd have to chat with the TMS guys, and I know a couple are on the line here, but I believe it would. Yeah.
Well, so to answer the question, I think the question was if I do a street turn exchange with an eModal, would that do a street turn in my TMS?
No, if it added to your watch list because you use
the question
the
if you added
manager
to your watch list?
application.
Eric, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I was reading the next questions coming up. If you book the container in your own platform, will it transact in your own TMS? And question asker, if you can, if you want to provide some extra details.
Yeah.
And then,
I guess where I'm going is if it was added to the watch list as a result of the Empty Manager application activity, in that case, if the TMS provider was connected via API to us, it should update, I would believe.
And then question asker, if you you want to send me more details, I'll certainly forward it along to our presenters. People are asking for a list of which TMSs are involved. I don't know if you have that list available, but I will, question asker, I'll ask them offline if your particular TMS is involved. Can you recap the process for reserving a container? I do have that video as well. We can show that near closer to the end. Or how about when I send out the recap email to everybody, I'll include a link to your video list for the Empty Manager. I think that might be a better way to go about it.
Yeah, those videos are all on the website. So if we can just kind of direct them to the website, I think they'll get all of those materials there.
Yeah, and
there's also a real simple and comprehensive user guide that's just very straightforward. Yeah.
We'll have this video hosted on our YouTube channel. So if you're not following us on YouTube, make sure that you do, and you'll be able to see the entire recording, including the videos that we presented on there as well. But I echo the team from Advent. All these resources are on their website. So if you just want to see the videos, you can go there. But if you're having a hard time remembering adventintermodal.com, or you don't find them easily there, you will be able to see it on our YouTube channel, probably starting tomorrow.
And actually, if I may, if you're trying to get to advantintermodal.com, make sure you type www.advantintermodal.com. Typing advantintermodal.com will not take you to the website.
No.
I'm looking into that. It should, but it's not. So just as an FYI.
We have another question. Can ocean carriers and licensed motor carriers feed you their 404s to show booking export opportunity by location, etc.?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Eric. Could you say that again? I was just testing the URL. It actually did work when I typed it in. So, Rawad, you did such a good job fixing that. But
I fixed it already.
Yeah.
No problem. So can the ocean carriers and the motor carriers feed you their 404s to show booking export opportunities by location?
Rawad, I'll pass that one to you.
Not currently. So they will be able to in the near future. We are working closely with as Dennis mentioned, with the TMS providers. We're working with Comcare and Profit Tools and Trinium and Next Trucking and others, and we're looking at integrating. We're looking at, we're going about this in multiple phases. The first phase was completed in the built of the API, and that was just a matter of integrating with those systems. But the APIs are built and completed and tested with some of those trading partners for the container visibility and the so all the inbound from eModal into your TMS. So containers on your watch list in eModal or on your in your TMS watch list basically will connect, and you will have visibility into your dispatch system, into the status of a container. And I believe that this covers bookings as well, if that is the question here specifically. The next phase will be to include, which we are currently in the process of finalizing, to include the ability to create pre-arrivals and appointments directly from your TMS as well with the terminals, and not having to go to eModal to complete that process. And then the third phase will include ability to pay fees directly from your TMS as well. And so with the Empty Manager and any subsequent apps that will come onto the eModal platform will be worked into being integrated as part of those API processes as well.
Good. Another question came in midway through, but I think you did answer it, but just in case, they're wondering if the list of containers that is showing, if it's that list of empties is coming from everybody's TMSs or just eModal, or if it's all self-entered.
It's both. So if you have, if a user has a container in their watch list that has been published for an empty, when you look up certain, when you do I need an empty and you look up specific criteria to get available empties that match those criteria, you will only be able to see containers that have been published. You won't just see all imports that have been taken on the street, because they have to be available for a street turn. And the trucking company must be willing to do that street turn with you. So it must be published. But we understand that not everyone is an eModal customer, right? So some of the terminals down here in LA Long Beach do not subscribe to our products yet. But essentially they so if I need to do a street turn for a container that is going back to WBCT and WBCT is not doing appointments with eModal, I'm still able to do that. If I need to do a street turn for containers that are by a rail terminal up in Chicago or in Milwaukee, I'm also able to do that. It's not limited to the scope of the marine terminal operators that do appointments with eModal. Those terminals that do send eModal their container data will make it a little bit easier, because those containers will already be on your watch list as the trucking company moving that container out of the terminal. And all the details of the container will pre-fill as you're submitting it. So all you'll have to do is click submit, because all the details will be filled in from the EDI or API gate activity we receive from the terminal. But for all those other facilities, you will have the option of simply inputting your information in there and publishing it.
Gotcha. Thank you. That answered their guy's question. Would the carrier be able to batch upload and publish containers? Is there an option for that?
Not so. They will be able to have, if they have multiple containers in their watch list, you can select them at once and click publish. But then you will have one pop-up window at the time. However, if you're publishing them and they're all at the same address, for example, that information will stay and will default. So all you'll have to do is hit OK. Okay.
Okay.
In case you want to change the address or the details of the container, you will still have the option of doing so. But that is the way they'll be able to do it.
Gotcha. We're getting close on time. A lengthy comment came in, so I'll share that with you guys. But I just wanted to, tell you guys, thank you for putting this on. The HA is always happy to host you. You're a great partner for us and a great partner for our community. And this new application is really going to alleviate some of the problems that we're having getting the empties back. So I wanted to thank you guys for developing this and presenting to us. And Weston, would you like to do any closing comments?
I think you covered it. Thanks again, guys. I would encourage anybody who's interested, please reach out and sign up to be a beta tester. I know that Advent is very, they want to make sure that they get everything correct so they can launch this as a solution and start the integration processes and all the other things you guys asked about today. And I would continue to urge you to tune into these. Our next one with Advent is going to be fantastic. And I think it'll help clarify a lot of the common issues that folks have when using the platform. So we're looking forward to continuing this series with the folks at Advent eModal. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right. And if you have any questions, you can always send them to me. And with that, we'll wrap everything up and I'll send you out the list, send out a link to the video of this recording and a link to the Advent page for them to sign up to the beta and their videos on the actual app. Great.
Thank you very much, Harry.
All right.
Nice day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.